What's going on, kings and queens? Thanks for joining me again on Keeping It Copacetic. It's been several weeks since I made a video or read a chapter. Back teaching, and I don't even know what to say. I don't have the words. I do not have words, but it has taken everything I have. I'm fighting for my life. I am trying to survive. So most days when I get in, I am just exhausted. I have nothing left to give to anything or anyone. So it is tough. It is tough. It's teaching. It is something going on here, but I don't even want to get lost in that because this is just the weekend and I want to just take this time to take a moment just to relax, kick back, read a couple of chapters of Shortcut, get back to something that I love, something that is my passion, and just something that just helps me feel better. This helps me feel better. So, if you all are feeling me on that, take a moment, get you something to drink, something to sip on. I'm sipping on this chamomile tea, lavender in it. They say it's going to relax you. And so I got a few more hours left of this weekend. So I need all the relaxation that I can get. And I'm sure I'm not alone on that. So get you a cup of tea, get you a glass of wine, whatever it is, a cool beer, a cooler, whatever it is that just helps you kick back for a moment and relax. Sometimes you might need a cocktail, but hey, tomorrow's Monday morning, so we gotta keep it we gotta keep it cute. And as long as we are still keeping it copacetic. So put your feet up, get in that position that relaxes you, get on that pillow, lay back in the rocking chair, whatever it is, a swing, something that just helps us just mellow back. We need these moments. It's getting tough out in these streets. So if you're commuting, just hey, keep your eye on that road, be safe, but just stay mellow. Just stay mellow. Don't let anybody get you upset out there in the road because they get me upset. I have to catch myself. So anyway, let's do a little bit of a recap on chapter 16. Eva's gone. Eva's gone. Somebody killed Eva. And Ernest doesn't have an alibi and he doesn't even remember what happened. He says he doesn't remember what happened. He had some drinks. He was really upset. So he's just going through it. He's trying to talk to Vince and see what Vince has to say. I mean, he talked to his mom. His mom is like, hey, I got you. I'll be your alibi. And then he finds out that Rochelle also went to the hotel. So it's a big, big mess. Big, big mess. And of course, we've got the two detectives on there. They are on the case trying to see who did that. And of course, Rodney, he's got some feelings for Eva, even though she's gone. So he's feeling some type of way. So he's on the case. He's on the case. So let's go ahead and try to get into chapter 17 and we'll try to do chapter 17 and 18. Let's try. Let's see what we can do. All right. So here we are. What did the report from the lab say? Rodney asked Megan, getting in the car with two large smoking cups of coffee. We didn't get much, he answered with a sigh. Tapes from monitor exits at the hotel didn't give any suspects. There were 13 sets of prints picked up in the room, but no matches. That sucks. The medical examiner said that the murder weapon was a thin, sharp blade, probably a scalpel, straight razor, or even a box cutter, Rodney said. That could be the doctor, the barber, who knows who, she said, throwing up her hands. Did you get any leads or anything interesting from her laptop? He asked with raised eyebrows. I spent my whole Sunday going through all of her business transactions, and I didn't see anything that threw up a red flag, Megan answered, taking a sip of the hot brew. I may have something we can go on, Rodney said, sounding superior after her null report. There were quite a few calls and personal text messages to a number listed to Ernest Shaw. Urgent messages, if you get my drift. So what do you have on him? I know you ran his name already, Megan said, hating the way that he always dragged out anything that he thought was significant. Some petty stuff as a juvenile, nothing lately. He owns a barbershop on Buchanan Street, King Cut, and he recently opened up a gentleman's spa in the Gulch. Megan nodded. Sounds like a man with a head for business. I don't doubt it, Rodney laughed, recalling some of the text messages. Depends on which head you're talking about. Hamilton Realty holds the lease for the building, and his loan was from Pinnacle Financial. Ah, so that's why your teeth are showing this morning, Megan said, nodding. You think you're on to something. Most definitely, partner, he said. Based on the text, he was the one she was waiting for. Megan turned the key and started the engine. I guess it's time to make a visit to the spa. Not yet. Let's go to King Cut first, Rodney said slyly. Somebody there might not be too happy about his recent good fortune and be willing to have a conversation. You might be getting ahead of yourself thinking he's your man, she warned. Keep an open mind or you might miss something. Megan was talking to the breeze that blew in from the crack in her window, or she may as well have been. Her partner wasn't listening. One look at Ernest was all it took. Rodney had made up his mind that he was guilty. It wasn't because of a hunch or a psychic inclination. It was jealousy, pure and simple. He was jealous of the youth Ernest still had and the women he got because of it. He was always talking about haters, but he was one of them. Rodney and Megan pulled into the parking lot at King Cut. It was late afternoon, around 4 o'clock. The sun was still up. On the corner, a few guys hung outside the liquor store trying to hustle up enough to buy a bottle for the evening. I can't understand what a woman like her would even be doing in this neighborhood, Wilson said, scanning the litter-covered block from the refuge of an overturned trash can. Maybe we're about to find out, Megan told him, getting out of their car, although she really didn't think so. She was almost certain it was going to be a dry run. Even she knew that people around here believe snitches get stitches, and they definitely didn't like cops. She suspected it was just a ruse by Rodney to get Ernest to squirm before they confronted him. Unlike her partner, she preferred to catch her suspects completely off guard. I knew they would get here sooner or later, Leon said, looking out of the cracked glass of the front window held together with clear tape. Ain't nobody been by here to ask questions about who killed Pee Wee's cousin, but here they come for that rich bitch who got what she deserved. You better cap that before they throw your wrist together, Leon, Andrea said. They don't care if they get the right nigga, they'll take anybody. You got that right, Jeff said, turning down the radio. The bell on the door rang as it opened. Two guys waiting for their turn in one of the barber's chairs got up and left. They probably had warrants and didn't want to get caught up. What services are you here for today? Leon asked politely as they stepped in. Sir, you look like you could use a line and a shape-up. I do white hair, Andrea said, speaking up before he could answer. Once you go black, you'll never go back to your old salon. Thanks for the offers, Rodney said, running his hand over his hair. We're here for another reason. This is Detective Myers, and I'm Detective Wilson with the Nashville Police Department. And then he flashed them his badge. We're investigating the murder of a woman at the Renaissance Hotel last Friday. Her name was Eva Hamilton. This address was in her GPS. It got quiet throughout the shop. You could hear the drops of water from the leaky faucet as they hit the bottom of the first wash bowl. The detectives looked around the room, hoping to make eye contact with someone, but nobody in there would meet their gaze. This is her picture, Megan said, holding up a photograph. I've seen her before, Leon volunteered. She came in here once, said she was in real estate. Did she have any connection or business with anybody working here, Wilson asked. Leon shook his head. I did her eyebrows a couple of times, that's it. Are you sure she didn't have another reason for coming back, Megan insinuated. I did an excellent job. I can hook you up in no time, Leon said, smiling. No thanks. Maybe another day, Megan replied. Maybe she just felt like slumming every now and then, Jeff told them. She was a real thirsty chick, Andrea added. She was always trying to hook up with somebody else's man when she came in here. Wilson ignored Andrea's remark. What was her relationship with the owner here, and where is he, by the way? How should we know? Jeff hollered at them. Why don't you tell us? You're the ones doing the investigating. If that woman would have come back around here in that white Mercedes, you wouldn't have found her in no downtown hotel, that's for sure. Why is that? Wilson asked. Let's just say she didn't have a nice personality with our regulars. Wilson didn't like Jeff's attitude. He needed to learn some respect. He suspected that if he searched his work area, he would have reason enough to drag him down to the Justice Center. He moved closer to Jeff's station. Is that right? He asked, staring him in the eyes. I don't guess there's a need for us to thank you all for your help, Megan said, tapping Wilson on the shoulder and turning towards the door to leave. Like I said, girlfriend, I can hook you up whenever you're ready, Andrea joked. Back in the car, Megan told Rodney, looks like your pretty lady had a bunch of folks waiting in line to take her out, and I don't mean to lunch. The world is full of haters. That's all I can tell you, he said, staring back at the broken glass on the front window. Megan was getting annoyed on the drive to Pinnacle Financial. She didn't like Rodney's strategy of circling his prey, unnerving him with the knowledge that he was being hunted. She preferred a more direct approach. She thought they should stop wasting time and go question Ernest Shaw. After all, he was their prime suspect as far as she was concerned, especially after a call had come in about a guy matching his description threatening to kill Eva Hamilton at the Ruth Chris restaurant. Still, Rodney wanted to question some of the employees at Pinnacle and then go back to Mr. Hamilton's after his wife's activities within the company. His tactic was to eliminate all the other possibilities before he threw out his net. In his experience, not being meticulous in the investigation had always led to mistakes. They caught the elevator up to the executive floor and walked past the receptionist as if they were being expected. They passed an older woman in a dark red suit walking ahead of them in the hallway of glass windows. "Can I help you find someone?" she asked curiously, seeing that they were unescorted. "Yes, we're detectives with the Nashville Police Department," Megan said, opening up her blazer so the woman could check out her badge. "Oh, you're here to see Mr. Hamilton," the woman said. "I'll show you to his office." "No, that won't be necessary," Rodney said, surprised that Mr. Hamilton would be back on the job before his wife was even buried. "If you would just point us in that direction, I'm sure we'll be able to find it." "Of course," the woman answered. "It's down this long hallway and to your left. It's the last door at the end." "Thank you," Megan said with a smile. "Certainly this is so sad and shocking for all of us," the woman said sincerely. "I don't know who would do such a thing. No place is safe from robbers these days." Megan walked ahead of Rodney down the long corridor lined with impressionist paintings. Just as they approached the executive office suite at the end of the hall, another woman dressed in forest green and somewhat younger than the other exited the door. She smiled as she passed them. Rodney stretched forward to grab the edge of the door before it closed. They walked in the office unannounced and saw the wheelchair unoccupied, and to their surprise, Mitchell Hamilton was standing at the side of his desk, taking in his panoramic view of downtown. "Mr. Hamilton," Megan said, clearing her throat to get his attention. "We're sorry to disturb you, but we had a few more questions." "Hello, detectives," he said, turning around. "What do you need to know?" Megan said the first thing in her head. "I didn't know you were able to move about without the use of your chair." "I'm not crippled, Detective Myers. I have a degenerative disease," Mitchell said nonchalantly. "My legs are weak from time to time, but I haven't completely lost the use of them." "That's interesting. It completely blows my theory," Megan said pensively. "What theory are you speaking of?" Mitchell asked her. "I never considered you as a suspect in your wife's murder because of your physical condition." Mitchell pulled a large tufted leather chair out from his desk and sat down. "Don't worry, Detective. Your theory is still intact. I would never do anything to hurt my wife. I loved her." "Would an affair with a younger man have changed things between you?" Rodney asked, hating his unflappable manner and wanting to get a rise out of him. "I'm not a possessive man," Mitchell answered coolly. "I have never been monogamous, nor did I expect my wife to be." Rodney was entirely put off by Mitchell's cavalier demeanor. There had to be some anger or sadness somewhere in this man. His wife was murdered. He kept pushing, hoping to press one of Mitchell's buttons to release his true feelings. "Were you aware that your wife was seeing another man recently?" Wilson asked. "It seems that they were close enough she would co-sign a loan with them." Mitchell was still unruffled. "My wife worked here for several years as a loan officer. She retained her authority to approve loans here without it being reported to me. However, I make it my business to know what loans from this company are approved." "Did you and your wife have any discussions or arguments about relationships with this man?" Rodney asked, getting frustrated. "She knew how I felt on the subject." "And how was that, Mr. Hamilton?" Megan asked. Mitchell swiveled from side to side in his chair. "I told her to end it. Furthermore, I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I'm sure you two can respect that." "Certainly we can," Megan said, backing up to leave. "I hope you don't mind my saying, but you don't seem to be saddened by your wife's death," Rodney said, probing deeper into their relationship. "I am deeply hurt by what happened to my wife. I cared for her very much," Mitchell said, turning away from their judging eyes. "Not to mention, I've lived long enough to know that shedding tears doesn't change a thing." "We'll finish this another time," Wilson said at the door. And that was chapter 17. Let's go a little further. Let's go ahead and get into chapter 18. Jane kept glancing at Ernest out of the side of her eye. Something was wrong. He seemed out of sorts to her. It made her feel like she was watching a candle burning down to its end. When the shop first opened, she got a kick out of watching him work. He was a master hair groomer whose haircuts and shaves were kin to art. Now he was preoccupied and the haircuts lacked his usual inspiration. I'm starting to think you're in mourning over that woman that was killed, Jane said, half teasing Ernest. You might need to fill that third booth if you're slowing down. Ernest knew she was right, except he wasn't in mourning. He was worrying. Leon had called last night to give him a heads up after two detectives had come by King Cut, a black man and a white woman asking questions about his relationship with Eva. With that on his mind, he wasn't able to concentrate on his clients, and the walk-ins were having longer waits. He was distracted by every car that rolled down 12th Avenue. It's the stomach virus. I can't seem to shake it, Ernest told her. You need to do a colon cleanse, Carla said, joining in the conversation. You'll get all the bad toxins out of your system. I think I'll just let nature run its course, he said, wincing at the thought. It's all natural, Carla said. I'll bring you a bottle of the one that I use when I get clogged up. I'm not clogged up, he said. I haven't been able to keep anything down. You probably need to eat something bland like white rice. It'll give you some energy too, Jane advised him. Some vegetable soup is good for that too. I'll get some for lunch, Ernest lied, knowing he wouldn't. He didn't want anything to eat. He had been dreading the inevitable questioning that was coming. Not only was it driving him crazy, it was driving him to drink. He had taken a shot that morning before anyone had arrived to settle down, and if his jumpiness was becoming noticeable, it must be time for another. He was finishing up a shave when a tall black man in a trench coat, accompanied by a petite white woman, walked into the shop. He wasn't surprised. He knew exactly who they were from Leon's description. He was wondering what had taken them so long to come knocking. They spoke to Carla and then took a seat in the waiting area. He felt the heat of their eyes glaring at his every move, and it was making him perspire. He took a deep breath and exhaled to relax. He refused to allow them to make him uncomfortable in his own place of business. Megan was captivated by his attention to detail as he worked. She couldn't help but be impressed by the way he handled the straight razor around the neck of his patron. The possibility that it could have been the murder weapon was not lost on her. Despite that, she could plainly see the attraction that drew Eva Hamilton to him. He definitely hit the gym and he was sexy, but there was something underneath that good-looking facade that spiked her curiosity. He had an aura that gave her the impression that there was so much about him that was unseen, that there was a possibility of finding something of value hidden below. She wanted to dig deeper, inspired by an urge of optimism that makes one dig for oil, gold, or even diamonds. Rodney disliked Ernest from the moment he saw him. He hated guys like him. It seemed like they didn't have to try at anything. Women always threw things at them: food and shelter, money, unrequited love, and their bodies for nothing more than a grin of approval. He scowled as he watched Ernest slide his blade under the chin of an unsuspecting man in the chair. He visualized him slicing the beautiful Eva's throat without a word and walking away. Rodney fought the impulse to jump across the room and punch him in the face before he slapped the cuffs on him. In due time, he would have the satisfaction of taking his freedom away from him for the life he took. Sweat dripped down Ernest's back, but he played it cool as he led his customer over to Carla at the receptionist's desk to check out. Those two at the end would like to talk with you privately, Carla said to him with her voice just above a whisper. Sure, no problem, he said pleasantly as he made eye contact with them. He beckoned them with his hand. We can talk in my office. Ernest held the door for them to walk in, took off his smock, hung it on the coat rack, and motioned for them to sit down in the chairs beside his desk. Megan spoke first. Mr. Shaw, I'm Detective Megan Myers, and this is my partner, Detective Wilson. We're investigating the murder of Eva Hamilton. Megan waited for a reaction from Ernest, but he just looked back at her without any. After a few seconds, Ernest asked, How can I help you? I couldn't help but notice how skilled you are with the straight razor, Megan said, staring. It's a tool of the trade, he replied casually. The victim was sliced with a blade just like that, Rodney said accusingly. Ernest looked at him calmly and said, I wouldn't know anything about that. Rodney snapped back. You're one of the last people to see her alive. You were seen arguing with her at Ruth Chris restaurant. We had a business disagreement. That's it, Ernest said, maintaining his composure. Where'd you go after that? Rodney asked. I went by my other shop. Then I stopped by Dunk's and had a few drinks to chill. After about an hour, I went by my mother's house to check on her. She's sick and wasn't feeling well, so I stayed the night with her. Rodney shook his head in disgust, not believing a word of what Ernest had said. We've gone through Eva Hamilton's business records and found that she was part owner of this place and your landlord, he said smugly, growing weary of Ernest's arrogant behavior. Correction, detective. It was a loan, and I make monthly payments for the lease on this place. What was your relationship with Mrs. Hamilton? Megan asked, taking over. From the text messages between you two, it seems you had a personal relationship. Things went further than they should have between us a few times, but there was no relationship, Ernest answered. Were you aware that she had left her husband? Rodney asked. No, I wasn't, Ernest said, hiding his surprise that she had gone that far. Probably because that wouldn't have anything to do with me. Maybe her husband hired someone to kill her. Rodney continued. She texted you and asked you to meet her at the Renaissance, Mr. Shaw. Ernest was getting antsy, but he managed to stay relaxed. If you have her phone, you can see that she did that many times. I ignored most of them. You responded that night and told her that you would be there, Rodney said. Ernest hesitated before he answered. That's not true. I never texted her back. Megan was puzzled. Do you mind if I take a look at your cell phone? No, not at all, Ernest said, reaching in his pocket and handing her his phone. Megan checked his messages. Is this a new phone, Mr. Shaw? Yes, it is. I've had it about a month. Where's your old phone? Rodney asked, skeptical of his whole story. It's probably at my house somewhere, Ernest said, getting irritated. What difference does it make? Just curious, Megan said, realizing that the text message that went to Eva was from the other phone and may not have been made by Ernest. Was your wife aware of your relationship with Mrs. Hamilton? She asked. Mrs. Hamilton called my wife a couple of times and they had words. I assured my wife that she didn't have anything to worry about. Maybe she didn't take your word for it, Rodney remarked. Ernest responded angrily. Whatever, it's between me and my wife. Do you mind if we look around here and take a look at your car? Megan asked. Yes, I do mind. I'm running a business here. We can get a warrant, Rodney added. Then that's what you need to do, Detective Ernest said, standing and moving to the door. I need to get back to my clientele. We'll be back, Rodney said, following him out of the office. Ernest led them all the way to the front door and opened it. Thanks for dropping by, he said sarcastically. Rodney turned up his nose in a grimace on the way out. The whole thing stank. He knew Ernest was connected to the murder, but he didn't have enough to arrest him. They needed the murder weapon, and for all he knew, Ernest had it under the man's nose, shaving him with it while they looked on. We need a search warrant for both of his shops, his house and his car, Rodney said as soon as the door closed behind him. Yeah, but we don't have probable cause yet, Megan said. We need more to go on. We can't even place him at the scene. Then we need to request the tower dings around the hotel and get detailed call records dialed and received by the victim, Rodney said. Hopefully that will give us a break. In the meantime, we need to talk with Mrs. Shaw about her alibi, Megan said once they were in the car. Right now, there's no telling who killed this lady. Megan twisted her lips and grunted when they pulled up to the curb in front of the Shaw home in South Nashville. She was impressed yet again with their prime suspect. It was a quiet street in Melrose. His house and lawn were well maintained. For some reason, she couldn't put a profile together that said who he was. He was neither a ghetto thug nor a wannabe white. He seemed to be a contradiction to everything they knew about him. Was he the street hustler or the successful businessman? The tough guy or the loving father? The unfaithful spouse or a dedicated husband? Was he king cut or an earnest gentleman's spa? She stood in front of the dark-stained lead glass door while Rodney rang the bell. She was surprised again when Rochelle appeared in the doorway. She was a no doubt about it homegirl with large eyelashes, blonde dipped weave, oversized earrings, leopard top, and tight black leggings. Yes, Rochelle demanded as she flung the door open with her left hand on her hip as if she had been rudely interrupted. Are you Rochelle Shaw? Megan asked. Yes, I am. Who are you? Rochelle asked impatiently. I'm Detective Myers, and this is Detective Wilson. We're investigating the murder of Eva Hamilton. Rochelle rolled her eyes and sucked her teeth. Why are you here? She asked defiantly. Rodney was about to lose his temper when Megan answered politely. We have some questions to ask you related to the case. May we come in? Rochelle stepped to the side for them to come in. She stood outside of the living room with her arms folded and didn't offer them a seat. She wanted them out of her house before Rhonda and Rihanna got home from school. Rodney, highly irritated with her attitude and feeling disrespected, wanted to put her in her place and said, Your husband is a prime suspect in the murder of Eva Hamilton, and now seeing your behavior, I'm thinking you might have had a hand in the crime with him. You have a lot of nerve coming up in my house and criticizing my behavior, Rochelle said, unperturbed by his comment. Her family had had enough dealings with the cops for her to learn that if they had anything on you, they didn't even bother to talk to you. We know you had some heated conversations with the victim, Rodney said. Rochelle rolled her eyes. She was the one calling me constantly, trying to tear up my family and take what's mine. So you're saying you had a reason to want her dead, Rodney replied. Ernest didn't want that old hag, Rochelle said, shaking her head no. He kept telling her that he didn't want her, but she wouldn't back off. Maybe that's what he wanted you to think, Rodney said, disputing her. He told us that he didn't come home Friday night. So what? Rochelle snarled. Was that a normal occurrence? Myers asked to clarify their relationship. No, it wasn't. Not that it's any of your business, Rochelle said, frowning. By the way, Mrs. Shaw, where were you last Friday night? Rodney asked. I was here at home with my children. I bet you were, Rodney asked, being facetious. Rochelle turned her nose up at him. We spoke to your husband in earnest earlier, Megan said. He mentioned that you have his old cell phone. It's around here somewhere, Rochelle said, shrugging her shoulders. We'd like to see it if you don't mind, Megan asked. Rochelle curled her lip and frowned again before she turned and left the room. First, she went into their bedroom where she thought she placed it, but it wasn't in her nightstand. Then she checked in Ernest's nightstand. It wasn't there either. She looked in their closet and in the drawers in the bathroom. She took her cell phone out of her pocket and dialed that number. She didn't hear it ring. That's when she wondered if Ernest had taken it back. She was about to throw a hissy fit, but she stopped herself. She wasn't about to start tripping over it. The bitch was dead and she wasn't coming back as far as she was concerned. She walked back out to where the detectives were waiting. I'm sorry, but I can't find the phone, Rochelle told them indifferently. All right, Mrs. Shaw, Rodney said as if he didn't believe her. Why don't you keep looking? We'll be back. Rochelle opened the door for them to leave and then contained the urge to slam the door behind them. They were not going to piss her off and ruin her new outlook. She was determined to better herself on the inside and on the outside. She was going to be a better mother, a better wife, and a better person. She even planned to take some computer classes at Nashville Tech after the holidays. I didn't believe a word she said, Rodney said as they walked to the car. That was bullshit about not being able to find that phone. She's probably hiding it. Megan chuckled at his agitation. Don't sweat it. Next, we'll talk to his mother, and then we'll go get that search warrant. The dog barked on the other side of the door for nearly a minute, with her yelps reaching a higher pitch as she warned them to go away. The detectives kept knocking. Through the slight opening between the drapes that hung across the front window, Myers and Wilson could see the lights of the TV. Standing on the stoop waiting, Megan wondered why Ernest would allow his mother to stay in this modest duplex in such a rough neighborhood while he stayed in the upscale, quaint area of Melrose. Who is it? They heard his mother ask from the other side of the door. It's the police, ma'am, Megan answered, holding her badge up to the peephole. Can we speak with you, please? Sheila unlocked the door and cracked it open. Then Buttons began to jump and jeer at the detectives, growling between her barks. Hold on a minute. Let me put Buttons in my room, Sheila said slowly in the dim light. She doesn't like strangers in the house. She gently pushed the door back shut, and Wilson and Myers waited another minute or two while Sheila took Buttons to her bedroom. They saw the front light turn on outside, and then the door opened again. Come on in, Sheila said, opening the door wider. She was wearing a magenta velour housecoat and slippers in the same color. Her thick black hair with streaks of gray was pulled back in a rubber band. Rodney was surprised at how attractive she was. Ernest had mentioned that she was sick, so he thought she would have been much older. He figured she wasn't much older than he was. Mrs. Shaw, he said, I'm Detective Wilson, and this is Detective Myers. We're investigating the murder of Eva Hamilton. It's Miss Shaw, Sheila said, cutting him off. I've seen the story in the news, but I don't know how I can help you. The victim was an associate of your son, Ernest Shaw, Megan said. We have a few questions to ask you. Sheila hunched her shoulders and said, All right. Looking somewhat weak, she led them into the living room, taking small, measured steps. Please have a seat, she said, sitting down on the sofa, turning the end table light on and turning down the TV volume with the remote. Megan sat down across from her on the leather love seat on the other side of the coffee table and took a pen and notepad out of her jacket pocket. Rodney, still wearing his trench coat, squeezed in beside her. Miss Shaw, did you ever meet Eva Hamilton? Megan asked, starting off the questions. No, I didn't. Did your son ever mention anything about her to you? Rodney asked next. No, he didn't, Sheila answered abruptly. What does that have to do with my son? Megan skipped over Sheila's question. Miss Shaw, do you know where your son was last Friday night? Yes, I do, Sheila said, getting defensive. I called him at the shop before he closed up like I always do. He called and he asked me how my day was, and I told him it was a bad one. He said he would be by in an hour or so. Are you sure it was on Friday? Megan asked. Of course, I go to the dialysis clinic every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Sheila said. It gets me sick sometimes. What time did he get here? Wilson asked. It was just after 10 o'clock. The news hadn't been on too long, Sheila said, looking towards the TV as she recalled the time. After the news, we watched a movie and we both fell asleep here in the living room. Then there was a lull. Neither detective asked another question. Buttons began to whimper between barks in the bedroom. Sheila scooted to the edge of the couch. Rodney let out a big sigh in frustration before he stood up. He knew they couldn't easily dispute her story without more proof. Megan put her notepad back in her pocket and got up. Sorry for disturbing you, Miss Shaw, Megan said. We'll come back if we need anything more from you. All right, Sheila said, leading them to the door. I hope you don't think Ernest had anything to do with that woman getting killed. He was one of the last people to see her alive, Rodney said, turning back to face her. I don't know about that, Sheila said warily. All I know is that he didn't kill her. Take care, Miss Shaw, Megan said, walking out. Bye, Detective, Sheila said as she shut the door. The front door light went out and Button's barking stopped. So what do you think? Megan asked her partner when they were back in the car. No clue, although it wouldn't surprise me if a mother lied to protect her son. We're going to have to place him in that hotel before we can arrest him. Either him or one of the others, Megan said, reminding him they still had 3 other suspects. And that's the end of chapter 18. Whew. Thanks again for joining me on Keeping It Copacetic. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I'd love to hear some of your comments. And just thank you for the support. And I'm going to try to be a little bit better on getting these done. Y'all, hang in there. Hang in there. Be safe. Take care. And I will try to do the same. Not let these kids bring me down. Until the next time.